When we talk about new business development, one of the things that you hear all the time is that there's a high failure rate with new organizations. In fact, statistics show that 70 to 90% of new businesses fail in the first 3 to 5 years. So how many want to take that kind of chance? Well, for those of you that are thinking about being an entrepreneur, I'm going to give you 5 things that if you examine and you do well before you launch your enterprise, you can actually reverse those statistics. Again, can't guarantee success, but it should help you out quite a bit. The 5 things are, first, before you launch, examine your access to the market. Do you really have access to that market? Now, we could spend a whole semester talking about market. You know, who is my market? How many of them are there? Who's going to buy the product? Those kind of things. How do you have access to that market? Do you know you have access to that market? Don't do the field of dreams thing. Build it and they will come. It just doesn't work in enterprise. It only works in very small rural towns where somebody puts up a new grocery store or a new restaurant or something like that, and everybody flocks to it the first week. That's the only place that works. Don't do the build it things, but really ascertain how are you going to reach those customers. Number 2 is access to supply. There's a story that goes back a number of years ago about a gentleman that opened up a restaurant. And his restaurant, he really hit the nail on the head with the idea behind the restaurant. It was always packed, always had people in there. And yet, after several months, he realized, I'm just not profitable. How can this be? And he took a hard look. He brought in a consultant in. They took a hard look at his costs. And what he found was that his supplier thought he was just a flash in the pan, would be a nobody, and was really charging him outrageous prices on his food stuffs. And once they got that situation corrected, he was a lot better off. But he did not know enough about his supply chain to know that he wasn't paying the right prices on it. So access to supply. One of the things that you look at in the strategy section is Porter's 5 Forces model. And that would be, you look at the number of suppliers there are. If there's lots of suppliers, then that's generally favorable to you. If there's only 1 or 2, that's generally unfavorable to you. But that doesn't mean you can't do it, but what is your relationship with that supplier? Okay, the third thing is access to capital. Now, interestingly enough, most people think that capital is the hardest thing to get. If you have a great business idea, there's actually lots of people that will give you the capital. But it's the more finely tuned in that is knowing what your capital needs are. So many people are really good at adding up all the costs of opening up their operations and lining that money up and opening up and then not realizing that it's going to be months, if not years, before they actually turn a profit. And they don't put enough operating capital in the bank to operate on, and they actually go out of business before they even get off the launching pad. So having the right amount of capital lined up, doing some sensitivity analysis as far as range of sales, as far as how much money is going to go into receivables, all those things that eat up our capital need to be done beforehand so that you've got an accurate figure in the capital. More businesses fail. In fact, roughly 55% of the businesses that fail don't fail because they had a bad business idea or a bad product that people didn't want. They failed because they didn't line up the right amount of cash to get off the launching pad. Okay, number 4, and that is having a business plan. Putting a business plan together. And we talked earlier about planning, the importance of the planning process. Planning changes from time to time, but having that business plan gives us a roadmap to start with so that we can more accurately go out and know who our customers are, know who our suppliers are. The financial section of that business plan is important because that's going to tell us how much capital we need. And then number 5 on the list is having experience in the industry that you're going into. And that, of the 5 things that I mentioned, is the most important. Having some sort of experience in the industry that you're going into. In fact, 80% of the successful operations that are started by people that had a background in that industry. It allows you to see the opportunity, it allows you to know who the market is, it allows you to know who your suppliers are, and allow you to more accurately put together a business plan that will reflect the actual capital needs. Now, if you have a great idea and don't have experience in that industry, that doesn't mean you can't do it. Get somebody on either your partnership team or your management team that does.